put on her car. It talks about her tires being slashed. It talks about this device being jabbed into her tires to let the air out. It talks about a man showing up at a gas station, then following her to a car dealership, and that man's name was redacted all the way.
Who was that man's name?
True. Last night we learned the man's name was actually John Paul Miller, the estranged husband, the man who everybody had pointed to as the cause of all of this prior to finding out it was a suicide. But now we actually have an email from him when he's admitting to some of this behavior. What have you found out?
So we've come into a lot of information that has been sent to the police, and that's the key thing here, because people are wondering, okay, so what are police to do with all of these allegations? Do they even know? And now we know that her family has forwarded all of this information to the police. One of the things that is included in these documents is an apology email from him to Micah on April 15th of this year, which is about 12 days before she died. In it, he writes, "I'm sorry for damaging your car, tires, etc. If you ever come back, I will turn in both cars and get you a nice SUV."
All right, yeah, remember I highlighted that before. So 2 cars that were Micah's that he's talking about. So it was the white Honda, and then after he took that from her, she had to go get another car. So I'm assuming that he was talking about those 2 cars and trading them in to get her a nice SUV. That's one way they always try and con you back, is to, you know, gifts and things like that. So that's their, "I'm sorry, come back to me, I got something nice for you."
Whatever car you want. Again, my horrible flesh pattern of hurting someone when they hurt me. So there you have it.
He said that multiple times, that he wants to hurt you way more. Like, he wants to go beyond Petty Betty, you know, way beyond Petty Betty.
Kind of outing himself.
And I'll give you something shiny and new if you just come back to me. Boy, if I had a dime, Rich, for every time I've seen an abusive relationship like that. Yeah. So JP, actually, Mr. Miller, John Paul Miller, Pastor Miller, has been having conversations with you via, you know, texting back and forth. And if I understand this correctly, he has also admitted directly to you that he's the person who put the tracker on the car.
That's right. That's right. So earlier this week, I believe it was Monday, I engaged with him, and he started talking back with me, kind of unprovoked. And I also want to read this because this thing stood out to me when I read it at the time.
See, like I said, you keep letting them talk. Don't get on to them for speaking. Just sit back and listen.
I didn't really know it. He said, this is JP to me, I even hired a PI to put trackers on her car to know if she was going to a gun store, because she kept trying to get a gun for the past few months. I have never once in my entire life ever hurt her in any way, ever. I was just communicating with him on text, drawing him out, and he kept texting and texting and texting. I've officially asked him for an interview. His attorney has, of course, said no, but that's where it stands.
That's pretty glaring, admitting to that. Okay, the next thing is that he apologized for something else. And this was something we were unsure of. There were allegations that Micah had been threatened, that a topless photo of her would be posted on the internet. And now he is admitting that it was him. He was the one making those threats.
Yes, so this goes back to this apology letter that we have. It's an apology letter from him to Micah, dated April 15th. In it, he's apologizing for a series of things, and one of them is a photo that was produced on the internet. It was topless of her. We're not going to show that here, of course, but in the apology, he says, "I'm sorry for putting a picture of you on the internet. It was for less than 1 hour and immediately taken down. I was hurt that you were telling
He was hurt. He was hurt for her telling the truth. He was hurt. And what is it he always says? That he's going to hurt them way more than they hurt him. So we know his pattern already.
Everyone, horrible intimate details of my past sin, and I just wanted to try and hurt you. Please forgive me. It was evil of me to do that."
Oh, so yeah, it's only up there for an hour. Like, that doesn't have life elsewhere when people download naked photos and they live forever. And I'm sorry, but there's the but. Like that's again just a classic pattern that you often see. So you have also seen text messages between John Paul Miller and Micah's family. What were in?
I was trying to find the video about y'all gotta excuse me, I got 4 of my dogs in here. But I was trying to find the video where the man was talking, and I can't remember if it was the kayaker or the fisherman that had said this, but about talking with the sheriff, and he knew it was a sheriff because of the drone that he was flying. They were looking for Micah at that time, but the sheriff wasn't in uniform or anything, so I mean he was like, I guess maybe off that day but on call or something, and he was out there with the sheriff's drone. Now I'm looking for that, so, and that's why I'm kind of reviewing some of this old stuff, but a lot of this old stuff is being ignored and not really being talked about.
Those text messages.
Some of the text messages I've seen were pictures of text chains where her family was communicating, and Micah was on there. But Micah, this was at a time where I believe she was in the hospital, and so the Micah jumps into the conversation and said something like, "Happy Valentine's Day to me," and I believe her mother or a relative says, "Micah, is that you?" And it was quickly figured out that this was not Micah. This was JP. That he had possession of the phone, and it was his interpretation, legal interpretation, that it was marital property. And so this is just one of a number of instances. You know, he took over her Facebook page.
And see what I was talking about earlier about him going to fake a lot of stuff, and about, you know, what she thought about her family and things.
Legal interpretation that it was.
So here's another thing. Wouldn't that, or not another thing, but wouldn't this be considered identity theft? I mean, really?
Marital property. And so this is just one of a number of instances. You know, he took over her Facebook page. Her brother took it back, and her sister took it back and said, "Hey, this account has been taken over. Do not post." There's a lot here. There's a lot here, actually.
Like, I mean, marital property, sure, but communicating as someone else is.
Your identity is not marital property. Your identity is you yourself. It is not marital property. No, sir.
Not marital property. You can't just grab a marital property telephone and then pretend to be like. There's a distortion if I've ever heard one.
Exactly. So in his mind, Micah was his property. Like, she was not a person, a human being to him. She was property, like his house, his car, property. And this is my donkey, everybody.
So Micah herself wrote something before she died, a document of sorts. Did you get your hands on it, and what's in it?
Yes. So this is a letter that she wrote 2 days after this apology letter, if I have this correct, and roughly 9 days before she died. It was a letter for the courts in part of her divorce court proceedings, and it's a hard thing to read. I'll just be completely honest. She lays out like the entire case of why she's leaving him and what has happened to her. I just want to read a snippet of it. I don't even know if we have it, but her opening sentence is, "Since the day we became husband and wife, I have been abused in every way I can think of, emotionally, sexually, spiritually, financially, and physically. He has harassed me physically and electronically with letters, phone calls, emails, texts, hacking my emails, hacking my personal Facebook and impersonating me, using my stolen phone to send texts and emails out to church members." It goes on and on and on. "Installing tracking devices on my vehicle, on my godmother's vehicle. The trackers were found on March 11th, March 14th, March 24th, April 15th. All of these have been documented and reported to the police." That's the key here, actually, is that the police
what I wanted to
have all
ask.
this information.
The police have all this. They have the letter. They have the incident.
And nobody would help her because they were married. She was not property. She is a human being and a beautiful soul. And it's a shame this world lost her. So, and just so y'all know. I got a notebook dedicated just for Micah. So, we're going to keep researching this stuff. Justice for Micah, y'all.